Oh, flashback to another lifetime. Tonight at 11. This morning at 10. Oh, I like to start out with some light stuff, and then I was coming in this morning and then checking the news and the phones with the flip phones, giving you the flip phones, the notifications on your phone. Flipping me out is what they do. But I'm just kind of caught up in the Houston thing, right? So we just need to do our prayer work around Houston. The flooding and the storms and the rain is torrential. It's unprecedented beyond anything they've ever seen in that city. And that city is prepared for rain, I know, because they get a lot of it down in southeast Texas. Yeah, so that's what's making headlines, among other things. But that's a little bit what we're talking about. Tonight at 11, and the headlines, and what those headlines do to us, and how they affect us, and how they get into our head, into our mind, and create lines or stories that can lead to anxiety and moments of sadness and depression. You know, back in the day when that was what I did, and people ask me all the time, do you miss doing the news? I love doing the weather. That was nice. It was something that people needed, but the news in general was pretty rough to deal with. I feel like I moved away from the business of fear into the business of faith. And it's a much lighter business to be a part of. You know, we had a news producer, and he would scream out in the newsroom, "If it bleeds, it leads." That was the attitude. If it bleeds, it leads? Are you kidding me? And the gallows humor that we used to participate in is just not right. And then sometimes it would just go off all crazy. I remember one of our news anchors, I won't say her name, but her initials are Bree Walker. And it was in the teleprompter one day, and it was one of the news writers just got it in his head to do something kind of silly. And she read it, and it was one of those headlines that comes on at like 9 o'clock to tell you what's coming up at 11. Tonight at 11, news, it's highly inaccurate. Oh my God, you should have seen her face when it was coming out of her mouth. It was like, it was gone, you know. And then the print media really, they get it going. They do. I found some that I thought were just priceless. Like there was a headline in a newspaper once that said, "War dims hopes for peace." Man alive hours before he died. Really? Oh, here's one it was on the lifestyle section. When baking cookies, include your children. From the science pages, breathing oxygen has been linked to staying alive. and this one in the police blotter section. Police begin new campaign to run down jaywalkers. That'll get you. That'll get you. When you see that, you're like, I'm waiting for the light. But seriously, though, for me, it's like I watch the news because it's, as my good friend and mentor and teacher Michael Menard Beckwith says, it's the opportunity for us to pray. It's the opportunity for us to pray. It does, though, seem like the world has taken a negativity pill. But we here in the Science of Mind have the opportunity to down a positivity pill and not go with a glossing over of things. We're not going to do a spiritual bypass around it, but we do have the opportunity to allow the headlines, the lines that stay in our heads and occupy our minds, we have an opportunity to change our perspective on those and to change the look and use our teachings to move beyond it, to understand what news is all about. You know, now I'd heard years ago that news was actually a compilation of the words north, east, west, and south, but that's not true. Actually, news is a word from like around the 14th century when things were new, and there were a lot of things that were new. They called them news, like a plural of new, and that became the word that we now call news. I like to think about north, east, west, and south better, but that's just a myth. But the deal to keep in mind about the news, and I hope that we can all agree on this one and stick with this one, is that there's a teacher at the University of Texas in San Antonio. Her name is Mary McNaughton Castle, and she studies this news, and she says that news, by definition, covers what is extreme and exceptional, the extreme and the exceptional circumstances. And so we must keep that in mind, that the news, and when the news, I always say this, when the news starts covering only good stuff, that's when it's time to look out. As long as it's still telling us things that are on the negative side of life, we can understand that that's the minority, that's the limited experience, and the wider experience of life is that things are really doing much better than that. But it doesn't change the fact that the news does get into our heads, that the news does sometimes increase our level of anxiety and even add to our level of sadness. And it's been studied. It's been studied that has happened. It depresses the immune system, that it does lead to depression watching the news. So what I'd like for us to do today is to think about how we can watch the news from a more positive perspective, not get into the sadness, but get into the opportunity that it presents us to live a more valued and prosperous life. To look at the kind of words that we use and to see those words that hit us in the news as mighty signals to touch our hearts so that our hearts can feel, and then we can move into that space that Dee led us into that contemplative silent space that allows us to reveal the answer for what it is that we are supposed to do next, our next move. Because see, the truth that we know from the Science of Mind teaching, the truth that we know from all the ancient wisdom teachers is that life is good. It truly is good. And there's only one life, and that life is God, and that life is good. There goes everything that's happening in the world. Despite the take that the slant that the news media puts on it is good. Even some of the negative things that happen that really hurt our hearts are sometimes those things that change the direction of our nation, or change the habits of our nation. I'm thinking about the thing that started the mad Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. That was the death of her daughter. And then this organization started up, and drunk driving has dropped off tremendously in our nation because of that energy that was put behind that one thing. Or Caitlin's Law. That was a result of a young girl being abducted. And now we have a whole new system of allowing for us to be on the lookout collectively to support our children in the world today. So things that happen in the news are really our signals to move into a new direction, to move into that higher level of realizing that life is actually good and that we are the activators of that good. Dr. Holmes says, we shall have to know that the truth we announce is superior to the condition which it is to change. Now that takes a lot of work to trust in that. The truth that we are announced is superior to the condition which it is to change. We know that we can change the condition, and sometimes that condition looks so overwhelming that we forget that this power that Patrick talked about, love, that love has more power in it than that is contained within the atom when it is split into what it becomes, to fuel a city or to flatten a city. But love has the power to lift up a nation, a community, the world. And we all have that love within us, and that's our job, right? So how do we go about doing it? Well, one thing is to remember that we have that power within us. Margaret Mead, anthropologist, used to write a lot about culture, said that never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. The only thing that ever has. And I just told you about two single individuals. It really is not even the committed citizens, it's one committed citizen that can make that change. It doesn't take a whole bunch of people. It's actually just one person that does something different, and they tell somebody else, and they say, that sounds like a good idea. Now you got two people doing it, and they tell a couple people, you've been on Facebook, you know how fast things blow up and get viral. Imagine the idea that you have to help change the world becoming viral and people catching on to that idea. It's just that simple. You see, we need to, what Dr. Holmes says we need to do is we begin by developing a happy outlook. So that means that when we're seeing things that are bringing us down, when we're dragged down by the headlines, when the news of the day seems like so overwhelming, first off, start off with a happy outlook. Yes, this is a troubled situation, but this is not to bring us down. This is a marking the spot for us to go into victory, to go into discovering the higher realm of living life. And that begins also with having an understanding heart, to know that some people get twisted and turned off into a wrong direction. And if we get into what they're dealing with in that wrong direction, we're following them down that rabbit hole. The thing is, stay with the happy heart. Stay with the open understanding. Stay with the compassion that allows you to see that that's a misdirected use of the spiritual truth, that life is good, and then we get on the other side of it and become the activators of something. Instead of the complainer, we become an actionator. My new word for the day. Action. I'm an actionator. I'm not a complainer. When I think about something to complain about, I just, what was I going to complain about that about? Okay, so there's my complaint thought. Now, what's the other thought? How do I move beyond that idea of complaining? What is it that I'm going to do? How about if I develop a helpful attitude and I decide to step out and make things go right instead of focusing on complaining about how things are going wrong? It's the thing that Patrick was talking about. How many times do you spend, how much a percentage of your life do you spend thinking about what's going wrong instead of thinking about what's going right in your life? If you can flip it over and get into the 60 to 70 to 80% range of what's going on, now you're telling the universe, this is the kind of life I want to live. And the universe is not listening even to your words. It's listening to that heart feeling that you have within you. You see? If it was listening to the words, oh my goodness, what would be happening to all the people that speak languages other than English? They wouldn't be saved. They wouldn't get the good stuff. No, it's the feeling tone that the universe is listening to. And so what feeling tone are you sending into it? Are you changing your beliefs? And if you can change your belief, you can change the world. You can be that citizen that Margaret Mead was talking about. Dr. Holmes tells us all the time, it is done unto you as you believe. So when we're listening to the news, let's go back to this professor at the University of Texas in San Antonio who studies news, who says that what we can do is consciously focus yourself on the evidence around you that the news is picking out the bad and the extreme things. How can we do that? How can we focus on that? Well, I got a little help for you. For starters, we got to remember that, again, the news is talking about the stuff that's extreme, that's exceptional, that's out of the ordinary. And then we've got ourselves in this new era where stuff is just, as this guy, Steven Pinker, he wrote this wonderful book. It's called Better Angels of Our Nature. And in it he says, the problem isn't the news. The challenge is we just have had bad stuff shouted into our ears louder than ever before. The stuff's just bang, bang, bang coming at us. So we have to bang, 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 go back with it, with the love, with the peace, with the understanding, with the compassionate heart, with the happy outlook, so we can move into its new higher space, you see? Because for decades, the trends of the world have been in the reverse direction of a safer, happier, more humane experience of life. Do you remember? I mean, you've seen the movies of the Roman gladiators. Do you know what that was about? That was about putting a guy into a ring and killing him. And people going, yay! We don't do that. Well, we do, but they got pads on and wear helmets. Right? But I'm going to tell you, this thing about doing the right action is not always easy. I wasn't sure I was going to talk about this, but I feel like I have to. So, John and I were talking yesterday about the ACLU and how we wanted to support the rights of people to speak their truth. And one of the things the ACLU does is it supports across the board people's rights to speak the truth, of their truth, freedom of speech. In America, we truly believe in freedom of speech. Am I right? But the ACLU also supports people that speak sometimes political freedom talk that doesn't agree with our political morality of what should be right. They might support the rights of the KKK to have a rally somewhere, because in America, free speech is free speech. That's a hard one, standing on principle. It's challenging. I'm experiencing that challenge myself right now because of the addictive habit of the game where the guys wear the helmets and the pads. I love football. But you know, the football league has got itself into some issues because they have certain players that have been convicted of crimes, but they still play. They have players that have beaten up their partners, but they still play. They have players that have been convicted of gambling, but they still play. They have players with felony records, and they still play. Yet there was this other football player, and we're not talking about what's right or wrong about what he did. I'm talking about the principle of free speech, who put his knee to the ground during the singing of a song, who's a pretty talented player who is not playing football right now. You know what I'm talking about? So, wow. So here's where the dilemma comes in. And this dilemma from moving from a complainer to an actionator may affect you at some point. Maybe it's not over this issue, but it is calling for that level of bravery and that level of courage in making this step to not let the news get you down, but let the news lift you up, and how it can help lift up the planet as well. You may be asked to make a sacrifice. The sacrifice that's being asked of now is for black men in America to not watch football, because this gentleman, unlike all the other ball players, didn't get a job this year. Wow. They're asking to boycott it. Now, the flip side is they're asking to take that time that you would spend watching football and do something in the community to help support young men. So that's a nice idea. But my goodness, we were walking through the airport day before yesterday, and there was a preseason game on the screen, and man, my eyes went, football. But my brain went, balance, freedom of speech, So that's the trick bag of it. It takes a lot of courage once you make your choice. But the choice is yours to make. And if we're going to lift the planet, maybe it's not football. I mean, it's really in the larger scheme of things, it's just a game, you know? But what happened in Charlottesville is not a game. That led to a person's life being lost, you know? What's happening in Houston is not a game. People can say what they want, but part of climate change is more severe storms. 25 inches of rain in less than 20 hours is a lot of rain. It is uncommon. Trust me, I know this. This was my job for 30 years. Trust this weatherman. Don't trust all of them. It is a competition. Yeah. Yeah. So we don't do sport killing. All right. And maybe I won't watch football this year. Okay. And the news does shout at us louder than ever before. But let me shout some stuff at you that maybe you didn't know about. Like 300,000 people every day in the world get electricity for the first time. Is that amazing? 300,000. That would give 109.5 million people electricity this year alone. Now, when you think, wow, that's a lot of people, that's still only 1% of the world's population. So there's still a long way to go to get more people to get that. Every day, 285,000 people get drinking water. When you go, it's so sweet to be able to get, drink water out of those one of them bottles or something, or from a filter. But do you realize how many people today, for the first time, 285,000 people today, for the first time will go right to a tap to get water? They will not have to carry 2 buckets 5 miles to get some water. We are so blessed. I want everybody to go home today. If you like drinking filtered water, I hear you. But today, drink it out of the tap and be grateful that you're one of the 285,000 that's had it for your whole life, not just today. 80% of the world's population can read now. 80%. In 1990, 90% of the world lived in extreme poverty. That's less than $2 a day. 27 years later, that's only 10% of the world. Now, that doesn't mean that there's still a lot of people living in poverty, don't get me wrong, but extreme poverty, from 90% of the world in extreme poverty to only 10% in 27 years. We are making major strides in the world today. So don't freak out when you see the news and think, oh my God, it's all going. No, it's not. It's going to heaven, not to hell. And when we feel like the news is sending us into that hell space, remember, that's consciousness, and we have the ability to flip our switch and to think about the happy outlook, the helpful attitude, and the peaceful life, and the power of good and the power of love to overcome these difficulties. Dee, are you ready? Okay. So she's going to get something together, because I thought if those stories and those facts were not enough for you, and those are not just junk facts. That came from the World Bank and from a think tank at Oxford University. But here's a couple other things for you to think about.
You never know what you're going to get. I'm Jack Dice. I'm 77 years old, and I'm a retired general contractor.
There's quite a bit of milk. I'm 76, and I used to work in Chevron.
15, 20 pounds maybe. Feels like 100 to me. I'm Frank Spagnoletti. I'm 85 years old, and I'm retired from Eastman Kodak.
Here come the Muffin Man.
One of the ladies in the homeless shelter used to say, "Here comes the Muffin Man," because at that time, muffins were a big thing. It's not so much muffins anymore, it's everything. We started out as the Muffin Men until the ladies joined us, and then we had to make it gender neutral. Muffin people.
Muffin people.
We collect food on a daily basis, 6 days a week, from various supermarkets, and we deliver it to shelters in Oakland. This food had been going to waste primarily before we started. This has been organized and going for 24 years, 6 days a week. There's only been twice that I've lost anything off the truck.
Senior citizens and the unemployed gonna have something to eat today.
We're just unloading at St. Mary's Center.
Our largest program is working with seniors, very low income, those that are homeless. The Muffin people are absolutely wonderful in bringing not only food, but healthy food. We can depend on them. We know that they're going to be here.
But when you actually get to meet people who are less fortunate than we are, and we're able to help them, it's amazing how you can get to know them well and you can understand where they're coming from.
Maybe it's an opening to get into heaven.
To stay home and just sit on the couch and watch television is not my idea of a satisfactory retirement.
The world is so crazy, and if people were more kind, it would be a little easier to live in. I get emotional. Kindness is, you have to do it. You just have to do it.
Can I take 2 bags?
Sure, take this one.
Any more loads?
Yeah, go. Every given month, I get 1,000 pounds of baby clothes, and volunteers who I know and trust bring those clothes down into my basement. Love Toys basically started in 2005. Hurricane Katrina happened, and I wanted to help in some way. I found this posting. There were people camped on a lawn, and they had absolutely nothing. They needed medicine, sleeping bags, blankets, they needed baby clothes. So I sent out one email, and within 4 days, I received 200 pounds of baby clothes on my front porch. A couple years later, I had another baby, and he outgrew his clothes, and I thought, why don't I start a clothing drive? What I did not do is put an end date to the clothing drive. So now it's been 4 years, and we've collected over 30,000 pounds of baby clothes so far. This is all I do. I don't exercise, this is my exercise. We're going to be sorting baby clothes in the Raiders locker room, and the Oakland A's wives are sorting baby clothes for Love Toys. These clothes are going to moms with very, very limited resources. They might be homeless, uninsured, have no support system. Some of the babies who get these boxes have absolutely nothing. They might be going from the hospital straight to a shelter.
It was really cool. I almost could picture the little babies that we were putting it in the box for.
I'm amazed at the amount of people that are helping, and I'm actually amazed at the amount of people who are donating baby clothes. It piles upon itself. Is we filled these boxes with 5,325 items. Love toys! And we're here at Children's Hospital Oakland, who will distribute them to newborns in need.
We have a mother who has twins. We're going to provide her with 4 of these boxes to clothe those twins.
So if I can alleviate one of the stresses from this new mom's life, I love being that person that can be able to do that. This is from Shamika. Shamika's 15. She writes, my parents kicked me out for getting pregnant. My boyfriend broke up with me. Knowing my little angel has clothes keeps me strong. This one's from Stephanie. It will make my life easier to know I can buy baby food instead of baby clothes. Look, I have goosebumps. Yeah, it's just, it makes this, what we do more real. It just motivates me and fuels me to do more. For some reason, I'm here to do this, and as long as the clothes keep coming, I will keep getting those to the newborns in need. And as long as I have volunteers that can help me do it, who also want to help, I'll keep doing it.
Wow. Did you enjoy that? Do you know, I just did you a favor. I just made you healthier. See, there's something called the helper's high, and it's been scientifically proven that what happens when you help people is your immune system is strengthened, your energy level goes up, and your lifespan increases. And here's the thing, it doesn't even matter if you're actually the one lifting the boxes. Even the one that watches the person lifting the boxes, or the one that watches the video, receives the same benefit, because the mind doesn't know the difference. See, so that's the power of the mind. The mind heals you as you turn that energy and turn that attention around on what's happening in the world today and flip it to these stories and these truths and these opportunities that exist for each and every one of us to get the helper's high, just by practicing kindness, open-heartedness, being that space of love. Dr. Holmes says, ultimately we shall see that all the errors of man are the result of ignorance of his true nature. Our true nature is that we are love beings. We are here to share that energy that is within us with each and every person that passes in our life. If it's nothing more than a smile, helping somebody across the street, unloading somebody's cart when they're putting stuff in the trunk of their car at the grocery store, holding the door open, simple things like that. Or not putting an end date on your baby clothing drive. You know? There's a wisdom that's within each and every one of us that knows how to use the intelligence of the universe to bring these kinds of realities into our everyday lives. And there's a power within each and every one of us to activate us into that power, into that happening, and to do it here and to do it right now. So as you watch the headlines in the weeks ahead, let's do some practice about it. Let's practice by just thinking about like a dragnet style. Just the facts, ma'am. What are you seeing? Not the slant, because all the news media has a slant, whether it's CNN or Fox News or MSNBC, they all have a slant. Move past the slant and see if you can just get right to the story. What is the story saying? And then listen for the headline, the line, not the banner, but the line that sticks in your head. What's the line of the story that sticks with you? See, that's sending a message to your heart, and your mind knows how to respond to that heart's message. And then the next thing you do is you use God as your referee. Remember, see, words are flags. So what words are being flagged in your mind? What word is the ref throwing a flag? That's a flag for you to stop right there on that word. And then using the infinite power of the divine in that silent space, we listen, and the action will arise. And maybe the action is simply to do something internal. Maybe the action is not to start some big drive, or not to go and stand behind a grocery store and take the leftovers and give them to a food drive. Maybe the action is just something that you do or don't do anymore that changes it. The action will come to you, but then become that small group, that individual that Margaret Mead says can change the world. Indeed, it is only the individual that makes the change. And we are all individualized expressions of the only thing that is. And if we can use that power, harness this love power, wow, Just imagine. Imagine. This just in. You. And so it is. So, now does affirmation make a little more sense to you? Here we go. Ready? This just in. All the wisdom, intelligence, and power of the universe is right where I am. And because of it, love rules, peace commands, and life overcomes. And so it is. Oh, it's so nice to be home. You were right, Patrick. This is talk about some love. It's happening in this room. Yes, it is. So it's our time for the healing prayer. And again, we are all individualized expressions of the only thing that is. So as we all collectively use our consciousness right now, we can make a shift. And so I want to begin, we're going to do the shout out as we normally do. We're going to call out loud because, see, the words come with a feeling tone. And that feeling tone is what will move us into expression in prayer. All right? And if we can all do it collectively, we harness that love power and we begin to do something really fantastic and magnificent in the world. So I'm going to start off, and I want you to join me here, and I'm going to start with the people of Houston and all those that are in the flood zone of southeast Texas. And who else? What else? Charlottesville. Our leaders. Our earth. Feeling the harnessed power of the divine in this moment, and knowing that we can only hold that intense energy for just a brief nanosecond before it explodes into the infinite possibilities, the unlimited good. Using the divine wisdom of the universe right now collectively, we call forth a healing. As our good friend Jamie Lilly says, there's a healing going on, Mother, Father, God, there's a healing going on. And we are the activators of that healing, knowing that it's taking place no matter what. But as we consciously align our ideas in mind with the mission of the universe to express itself in a higher domain each and every day, we empower and we give permission to all those that are in resistance to feel something washing over them. And that washing over is the wave of love. Let that wave generate right here at CSL Simi Valley and wash over the Simi Valley community, wash up over the Santa Susana Pass, all the way down into the San Fernando Valley, back through the Cuenca Pass and through Los Angeles County, right down to the ocean and back again. We're putting something into circulation that cannot be stopped. It's calling for right action, perfect outcome, wholeness and healing, forgiveness, kindness expressed in each and every way. I know that we are the activators of something good right now, the actionators to something fantastic, no longer complaining, seeing only the good and allowing love to flow forth from us. I call it good and very good, and I know that the universal presence, the listening cosmic ear is saying, yes, thank you for this instruction, and now I take it on and say yes to the law and make it so in time and space. And if you feel that movement, affirm it with me now as we say it together. And so it is.